Three, two, one. Hey guys, welcome to the show, Jason J. Daniels Show. We're live on the internet. We're live on X. We're live on YouTube. This is my third show today. It's been an incredible news day, as everyone knows. If you're watching this, Charlie Kirk, Republican activist, a conservative voice, 31 years old, an amazing person by all the accounts I'm seeing. Everybody, no one has a bad thing to say about him. Was assassinated today, viciously, brutally, and publicly. It's all over the internet. It's an incredible moment in history. We've heard about assassinations through history and American history, and we saw what happened to Trump. He fortunately survived, but this is actually an attempt that is going to change the nation. And I was really affected by it. I know my guest has been affected by it. Mindy Pechenuk is an awesome friend of mine. You know, Mindy, have you realized we've known each other for only 5 months?
Right.
Because I looked back on the first show today and I'm like, when did we do our first show? It's 5 months. But in that 5 months, I want to tell everyone that I've been so impressed by you and your courage to speak the truth about what is going on in this country when it comes to the radical agenda of the not only the Democrat Party and the anarchist Antifa, but now the socialism, which is so frightening to me because we know how just destructive that concept is. You don't have to be a socialist country to have destructive socialist ideas break down your society, especially through the youth, is what we're seeing. And the assassination today is textbook socialism. It's how socialism starts, and it's how it takes over a country and a state. And it starts with small towns, right? So Mindy, I just want you to give me your reaction because it's been a crazy day. My most views ever, I think, in one day, probably ever, has been today. We have a pretty substantial audience that's going to be watching, and I want people to hear you because you have the voice. Your voice, what you have to say, is what people need to hear now. So go ahead, give us your reaction to what happened.
I certainly will, because it's a very tragic moment in our history, but it's also part of the history of our country. We're at war. And Charlie Kirk was a young person who felt and led a movement of young people and old people because he believed in the principles of our country. And unfortunately, he was assassinated. I call it an assassination because this was a very high level operation. I believe, I don't have the details, but these things don't happen by some accident guy with a gun.
No, and I was going to get into that with you if you wanted to talk about what you thought about how this,
Yeah, I'll
because it
say
was
what
a
I thought.
professional
I don't have the
assassination.
details to back me up right now.
Sure.
This is also new. But, you look at, you know, we're winning. We're not losing. The enemy is very desperate. To take out somebody like Charlie, a 31-year-old young person who is leading a lot of young people, a lot of the future, why would you want to do that? In my view, because you want to put despair, you want to put fear, you want to create chaos, and you want people to back down. But as I've been a veteran of this kind of fight, JFK, RFK, Malcolm Luther, Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, those are shocks to my generation. But I think we have to affect this shock, which is a shock because you don't expect just an activist. He's not an elected official. He's not going to, that's meant to scatter us. I think what Charlie would want is that we be strong, we mourn him, we celebrate him, but we take on the fight in a way that we make all our lives as vulnerable as his life. Why should his life be more vulnerable? He's a father, a husband, two very young kids. My heart goes out to his wife and his two young kids. How do you explain that to your kids that don't understand death? They don't understand dad is not going to come home. That's a, to me, more difficult path. Politically, I can understand it. I can emotionally go through it and accept it. But how do you explain to a loving wife and two young kids that will never know what happened to their dad? That to me is the hardest part of this.
Well,
As
and
much as it
also,
brings,
yeah, well, I was going to say, and also the fact that his assassination is so publicly now available on the internet.
exactly,
It's
exactly.
just, yeah, go ahead. Yeah, sorry.
It brings tears to my eyes to think about it. And, but this, unfortunately, we're in a war. By the way, I made a mistake. I'm running for mayor 2026, not 2025.
Wait, wishful thinking. Here, you know what? I'll help you. Here we go.
You can correct me.
I
Thank you.
fixed it.
Thank you.
Look at that.
And I think this is a time for everybody listening. What I would ask you to do, not only to contribute a turning point in honor of Charlie Kirk, as some of my friends have already done that, but to honor Charlie in a way by stepping up to the plate. That to me is the best way you can honor Charlie. He did it with his young 31 years. He stepped to the plate. He fought for President Trump. He fought in every way he could. So, all the young people who may hear this, I reach out to you. Don't despair. Mourn. You have to mourn. But jump into his seat with us, Jason, myself, and others. This is your time. The best way to honor Charlie's assassination, I call it not murder, but assassination, is to be more political than you've ever been. To join the forces with me, people like Jason and others, that we know how to win the war that Charlie dedicated his life to. I will not let that go. And I call all young people to join with us. I joined this fight politically when I was 22 years old. I'm now going on 74.
Wow.
And every day of that life has been an eventful life because you're making a difference that you were born like Charlie felt. And Charlie's looking down on us now and saying, hey guys, you better get into the fight more than you've ever been. He's
Yeah,
saying, hey. I think
yeah,
that's what he's telling us.
you're right.
So
It's good.
don't let
It's
my
good.
life be in vain. Don't
Yeah,
just
it's good for us to
dream.
look. Yeah,
Get
look
into the
look
fight.
forward.
Go ahead,
Yeah.
Jason. Go ahead, Jason.
Well, I was gonna say I love your attitude about that. We have to try to find some optimism in this. You said so many amazing things in the last minute or so. One of the things that really stood out to me that you mentioned, and I thought about it before, was his youth. 31. This why see there's all sorts of I think it's really indicative of why he was killed because there are all sorts of older people who've been doing it. They're activists, they have impact, so on and so forth. But he is the one who is changing, was really changing the generation and towards
Right.
conservatism. And his online presence was spectacular. Today I learned he had $100 million company. He had 1,000 employees around the world. And because of their voter registration powers, a lot of folks are saying it had a lot to do with Trump being elected. And when Trump came in, things really drastically started changing for the better. And I know a lot of people are poisoned by the media and the mind virus through TikTok and all these things. But they have to also understand that there were people like him, his age, and there's thousands of people that don't have his visibility, but they have his passion and he has inspired them. So, talk to me about that. It was an assassination on the youth movement for conservatism. Talk about that.
Okay, great. I will. Because my dear friend Lyndon LaRouche, who recruited me to this fight, often said the enemy is more afraid of your potential than what you're doing right now. And I
Wow.
think that's what they were afraid with Charlie Kirk. Charlie had a command in the present, but he had a command in the future of young people, also old people, but young people, because the future is to the young. The older us, as I said, I'm going to be 74. We can do what we can do to inspire and lead, but the future is to the young people.
That's right. The young lions. It's
Right.
different. It's what
To
they can do
grab,
is very different.
right. To grab the future, to say, this is mine. I'm not a victim. I'm not going to go by my, who those who tell me I should do this and do that. But this is my life. This is my country. This is my future. And Charlie was inspiring people with that. And I think the enemy targeted him for assassination because of how many young people he was emboldening to become part of that movement, to be say, this is our future. This is our America. This is our world. And we're going to take it back. And so by assassinating Charlie, they were hoping to disparage those young people, put them in fear, put them in chaos. I say right now, the best thing you can do to honor Charlie Kirk's life is to join the fight. Don't give in to the fear. Don't give in to personal life. Because you just go by personal life, you're going to be ruined.
Yeah.
Charlie did not go by personal life. He put himself up front. And so I call on all young people who hear this, and also older people too, who can join, because is to join with Jason, to join with my campaign for Oakland mayor, to join with President Trump in everything he's doing, and to join with the legacy of Charlie Kirk. That we all become a one, not separate institutions, but a one to make all this happen. And not to digress, but for a moment, I have to let my dog out the back door.
I know. Go. You do your thing.
Yeah, he
Um,
has to let out. My
and if
friend,
you
his
need to,
friend's going to let him out.
well, look,
Go.
you're getting rescued. Look at this. See, this is the beauty of live streaming. The legend back there. Well, the canines need attention. We know
Yeah,
that.
he is. By the way, my dog is very much with us, and he's campaigning with us, and
Do you have outfit? Do you have campaign outfits for him? Does he
yeah,
wear like the
well, I have
vest?
one. I put side panels on him when I run for office. Empty for my mom.
We're going out. We'll go out pretty soon, and we'll roll with the dog. I like
Yeah,
that.
and Charlie was a very invigorating figure, and he needs us to be like him. That's the best dedication you can ever give. I'll say one thing: as a classical musician, and Bach died, J.S. Bach, and Mozart found out his secret of composition, he invigorated it. Mozart died, Beethoven did. So it's up to every generation, whatever the tragedy, whether it's natural or tragedy, like in case Charlie Carter, it was a shock to me. I mean, none of us expected this. But they did it because they don't want us to be as invigorating.
Yeah,
And
and we know assassination, and unfortunately, to put it this way, it is true. Assassination and violence is also a form of politics, and in most countries, that's the first thing you see.
right,
Like the narcos, right? That took over all those the Latin countries with all the drugs way back in the 70s. Their politics were ruled by violence, and that's how people became like the mayor of a town, like Escobar was in politics, and he was one of the most vicious killers, right? I mean, he killed everybody. He even bombed a plane. I mean, the guy was super vicious. So one of the great things about our country is we don't go there ever because we have a constitution and we have just traditions that have held us together. And conservative traditional values are powerful. They last. A lot of these, unfortunately, the Democrat Party now, the anarchy that
Right.
they foster is temporary, it's destructive, and in the end, people don't even remember them or remember that. But the ones that affect change to conservative traditional values are the ones that last. Now, speaking of the youth, I did not realize that Charlie Kirk was as big as he was until recently because I'm not his target audience.
Right.
But his target audience, he has an army, right? And he was had million. They were talking to today. He had millionaires and people just giving him all this money because of the power of his voice. So talk about this is also, yes, it was an assassination for sure. Like, first it was a murder, first it was a shooting, then it was a murder, then it was clear this was a professional assassination. That was a kill shot. The first video was hard to see, but then when the other one started circulating, people closer, you could see he was not coming. If he was going to survive that, he was never going to be the same. And it was clearly I believe, professional hit. A lot of people are starting to say that now as the news is coming out and videos being seen. But to me, I thought it was an assassination attempt on free speech. Talk
Right.
about that. Talk about
But I
how
will. I
important
will.
for us to now get louder, now do more, and not be afraid to speak because that's exactly what they wanted to do. They killed a man who, just for the power of his voice in the beginning and the fact that he was bold and had courage, literally changed the United States. And now we're all feeling it because he did change. People didn't realize, but he did. So talk about that, the assault on free speech
Yeah.
and what you've seen over the
Definitely.
years.
Thanks, Jason. I will. Because the idea of in this country that you should have a right to speak your mind and speak what you think is not a situation. There's a very, I'm going to go through something maybe a little high level for the audience, but I want to go through it
Make
because,
us smarter. Just make us smarter.
okay, because there's been, since we ever won the American Revolution, there's been a faction inside and outside the country. And I was young enough in seventh grade to witness the assassination of President Kennedy, RFK, Martin Luther King, and Malcolm X. But you never want to normalize yourself to assassinations. You never want to do that. There's a political oligarchy, I'm sorry, that's what I'm trying to say, oligarchy, which is against the United States. Because our nation's, hold on, I gotta let my dog in. Hold on one
That's all
second.
right.
He's barking.
The canine speaks.
Come on,
But and I love the you're such a musician. You have music, sheet music ready to go. I
yeah,
mean,
so I had a little bit. Sorry for
no,
the
it's all good.
interruption.
No,
This
it's
is about tone movement,
it, it's a
but
relax. We're just relaxing and just trying to put it together.
understand what
Yeah.
happened.
And I know people tonight are scrolling through looking for answers. And
Yeah,
hopefully we
and
can bring some folks some ideas
and
to
the,
think about.
and the deeper answer is you have to understand it's an enemy against the United States and the principles which this nation was established on. That all men and women are created equal in the image of God. And that creative principle is embedded in us as humans, unlike my dog has to have me open the door because he can't open it, okay? And there's an enemy against that, which is oligarchical. You can call them globalist, oligarchical. It's the British Empire elites, it's the central bankers, it's people in both the Democratic Party and also, unfortunately, in the Republican Party, which wants to destroy the ability of this nation to be a scientific production cultural nation, which enhances other generations. And Charlie Kirk was fighting for that. He was a fighter for that. He was working very closely with President Trump. I was talking to some of our friends in Arizona. Said he won many of the legislative districts because of standing for this.
I'm
And
glad
that
you mentioned Arizona because I heard today that next year he was planning on running for governor.
I hadn't heard, but I appreciate that
Yeah,
very
that,
much.
that comes from a very reliable source. I heard
I
that,
believe
and
that.
it made a lot of sense to me because I thought, okay, this is a deeper thing. They wanted him dead because they were afraid he was going to
of the
start to
future.
actually run for office.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely right, Jason. Because they're always afraid of the future. The enemy is afraid of the future, of what you can create. And so, it's, to me, a veteran of this war, been through a lot myself. We have to honor Charlie. God damn it, he was 31 years old with a great future, great children. It's a great tragedy. It tears my heart apart. Okay,
yeah,
as it does. And but I also know as it tears my heart apart, we have to be stronger than the tears.
100%. And I got to
The
tell you that
fighters.
the lunatics that are now boldly, another thing that's a very huge concern for me with the socialism, the wave of socialism is a major concern because first violence occurs, and that's how, so then people are afraid. They open their hearts because they're afraid of violence and afraid of like what's going to happen, right? And then the next thing is they start to actually parrot misinformation and destructive ideas. And that we've seen that on a certain level with the anarchists, but now this is different. And what I've been seeing now, once the reaction is kind of changing, now all the lunatics that woke up after sleeping in all day on TikTok are now, yeah, the losers without jobs are now starting to put very nasty, poisonous things online, boldly celebrating murder. And that is exactly where socialists want you. They want you to, like you said, normalizing assassination, normalizing murder, normalizing, well, I'm just going to continue. I'm going to, instead of, breaking in and looting or setting things on fire, now I'm just going to kill you if you don't agree with me. That's where we're at. And the people that celebrate murder, and I will tell you this, the people I'm seeing celebrate the murder are young people under
Wow.
30, the Charlie, right? You're right. It's a battle for the youth because, you get to a certain point in life, you're like, hey, I'm on my path. You can't change me. Well, they can't change you, but they can change a young person's mind through socialist ideas, through violent ideas, and through the endorphins that come through these kind of shocks, right? The shock to your system, and then obviously the poison through social media. So talk about socialism. And you definitely, before we first met, that was one of the things you were obviously concerned about. And obviously Oakland, the socialist ideas that have brought pain and suffering to Oakland, and we can definitely talk about that in your campaign and why you're doing what you're doing. But talk about how destructive socialism is and how people that are flirting with it, even in New York, right? Electing us. Talk about where that goes if it just gets embedded.
Okay, I'll do my best. Because it's a big subject you're raising. Because socialism is an artificial creation of British intelligence. British intelligence, what people don't understand, but they think they're being socialist. Oh, I care. Let's be kind. And all this
Right.
bullshit. Socialism is the creation of British intelligence to dupe you into sincerity of feelings. It's not a real thing because when you think you're helping somebody, you're really hurting them under that construct.
Right.
I'll give you an example: the idea of cashless bail, the idea that we have to be kind to illegals, the idea that you should tolerate criminals who've been in, obviously found and you let them go. This is a false construct. Socialism, let me be blunt, is a function of the highest level of the bankers, British intelligence, highest level of the political class who created this in order to create an excuse for them to kill you. I'm being very blunt, okay? I'm in my
Yeah,
blunt right
look,
now.
this is the day to be blunt. That's why I brought you on. I'm like, who's going to be honest? Minnie's going to be honest. Not that my
Yeah,
other guests aren't honest. I'm just saying Today's the day we need your
Yeah,
voice.
I'm
It's
going to be
really
very
important
blunt.
people hear you.
Like this drugs or homelessness, they created, they deliberately brought in the drugs. They brought in the homelessness. They created this deindustrialization. How do you kill people at the mercy of a policy? So it's not that they're socialists. They're elite establishment tied to British intelligence, tied to the globalism. This is their intent. And people have to stop buying into labels. Because as long as you buy into a label, you're going to be suckered into a phony argument. And I have many friends who get into that, by the way. Some don't, but some do. Because you have to look at the root cause. Who's really perpetrating this? You can call it socialism, you can call it communism. No, I call it beyond that. It's a conscious policy of the biggest financial elites, the City of London, British intelligence. You can call it Nancy Pelosi, you can call it the rhinos, but it's all one conglomerate. It's no separation. And we have to honestly understand this to defeat it. Because they're going to suck you with so many sucker operations. Oh, we have to have cashless bail. We have to have judicial freedom. Screw that. We have to allow, drugs to ease the pain, whatever it is. No, we have to go back to principles of the beauty of what this nation was created in the image of God. And Jason knows, I won't go into it tonight, but I'm a big fanatic of that because we have a beautiful moment right now. And I'll speak to this, Jason, if I can for a moment.
Yeah, go ahead.
Stop me when you want.
Oh,
But,
this is great. This is great. I have great questions, but you're saying great stuff. Go ahead.
we're in a great moment to win the victory. Charlie Kirk's assassination, it's horrible. I wish it on nobody, including him. All of us are potential victims. I could be shot tomorrow for what I stand for. I know that. But that's not the issue. I'm a 74-year-old, so maybe not. But
Well, it's so interesting that you say that because remember in our last podcast, you ironically said, "Hey, I'm not suicidal, so I'm going to
right,
say something
exactly,
if right."
exactly.
And we kind of laughed about it, but that was I thought about that today, and I was like, "Wow!" Like
Yeah,
we really kind of joke about that, but
right,
that is a like it's life or death now. It really is because
exactly.
and they are of course this person that did it knowing the entire world would see it and knowing they're still not caught. I mean, as far as I know, that at this point they've gotten away with it to a certain point and how it would reverberate. But I'm
I'll
going
say
to
something to
piggyback
that
now.
real quick. I
Yeah, go
heard,
ahead.
I don't know if the news account is right, they caught him. I don't know. But but the question is, like you're saying, the bigger question I think is everyone should risk our immortality. God gives us one chance to live. Do you dedicate it like Charlie Kirk did, like President Trump or Abraham Lincoln or McKinley, whoever has been assassinated, Abraham Lincoln? Why should our lives be more protected than them? I don't believe in that. I believe every one of us, you can be run over by a truck tomorrow morning and die that way. But why should you not live your life for the sake of the future of humanity where you're willing to risk your life? That's been my belief my whole life. Your Ukrainian grandmother who escaped Ukraine in 1913 came over to America. When I was about 8 years old, she said to me, Mindy, you have to give your life for future generations. That's why you have to live your life. I live that for you, but you have to live that for others. And somehow that stuck with me my entire life. I thank her for that. She barely could speak English. She read Yiddish. That was, she's Jewish. She read Yiddish. But I thank him for that because of everything in my life that stuck with me. And I'm encouraging everybody hearing this broadcast with Jason, thank you for it, that in honor of Charlie Kirk, in honor of anybody who's been assassinated before or may come after, let us live our lives the same way. Put yourself out there. Go out there and fight for what we have to have. If we do, his life will not be in vain and we will win for the future generation, which is what the oligarchical enemy is afraid of. They weren't
Yeah, they
afraid
don't
of
want us
Trump
to
because
unite.
of what he did.
You're
He's
right.
afraid that he could become a potential governor, he could lead the youth. And so the best honor we can give to Charlie Kirk is to go there with our lives and be that. I do that. Jason, you do that. And I encourage everybody living that to join us in that fight, to reach out to Jason, reach out to myself. Let's go there. What you got to lose? You gonna want to be somebody with knitting needles? You want to be somebody that lives
Yeah.
the life that
Why?
maybe end up in your assassination, but it better that life that you lived than you didn't live.
Well, you're so, it's just profound. And because of your life experience and the things that you have done, the challenges you have overcome, I just really knew you were the best interview, right? Because
Thank
this
you.
is a deep, you're welcome, because a lot of young people are affected by this. My daughter is she's in her 20s and she's a big fan of Charlie Kirk. In fact,
Oh
I
wow.
didn't really know who he was, right? A couple years ago, because again, I'm not my demographic. And she, him and then Candace Owens and some others. So this is like their Mount Rushmore, a lot of them, right? These are their, this is the cyber generation. And my daughter is a conservative and she
Great.
campaigned for the president. She's very
Thank you.
motivated and I'm blessed, right? And a lot of it has to do with my children seeing my example, because when we were 20s and 30s, right? The energy, right? We'd stay up. I remember staying up for 3 days straight to do so, right. We had this energy. We didn't even have social media, right? We had to just
Exactly.
walk and find a
We barely
payphone,
had the
right?
turn telephone.
Yeah, I was telling somebody that there were payphones everywhere, man, everywhere. You know why they took the payphones out? So that we are now forced to pay money to these cell phone companies. But there was a time where you had to run and walk and get a bike, right? And my point, well, my point is, I know I'm reminiscing. My point is that um, our time, when you get to a certain point, your time, it evolves. It's not the power that the youth have, and my daughter was strongly affected by him and others, and
Wow.
so many great stories, right? And I didn't really watch a lot of Charlie Kirk. And I was telling people in my live stream, I'm not a significant fan per se, right? But I knew what he stood for. I saw a lot of things he stood for. I saw how bold he was and what he did for the president. So I knew about Turning Point. I watched his stuff at times. I saw him on interviews. But I mean, I knew I was aligned with him strongly politically. But when he was murdered today, for me, it was such a huge, it was a shift in American history
Same for me,
because
by the way. Same
yeah.
for me.
And so it wasn't like I'm a fan of him. It was I'm a fan of America, humanity, free speech. I'm a father. You're a family. Like we have families, right? We know what that would be like. And I think also a lot of these cretins that are celebrating this are just young people without families, or they don't understand, that connection. And I also think you tend to lean towards violence when you don't have a support system, when you don't have family members checking in on you, right? Or you have these crazy ideas put in your mind and you wake up and you don't have mentors, right? And I'll say one of the things I've learned a lot about this guy, and what I learned is that I didn't know he had this mentorship for men, for young men. And he had classes and they were doing conferences for young men to teach them how to be like fathers and how to be husbands and how to buy homes and like
I
finance.
didn't either, by the way.
What's that?
I didn't either what you're just explaining.
Yeah, he was changing men and women and young people, transforming them. So I could see why this would be a really great target for these anarchists. And I so back to honoring his memory. I really appreciate what you're saying. I think people should definitely give to his organization, and to honor the attack. I considered it, well, it's terrorism because it's a terrorist attack on it
Right.
because
It
he's a
was.
high level person, and people are forgetting this guy had Trump on speed dial. This was a guy that could go to the White House. He was there at Mar-a-Lago. This is a guy close to the president, the vice president, and they were talking about that a lot. They're saying he was very good friends with the president. The president stopped everything and did a speech today about it, did a presidential announcement
Right.
about it. This is a big deal. This was an attack on the White House as well. So
Exactly.
there is conversations that there could have been. This assassin might have gotten some help from the enemies of America. But where I'm going with this is that it's deeper than people realize. So it's more than just a story online. This is a real serious situation.
Right.
So I've decided to, it is in response to this, I'm going to switch my registration from independent to Republican.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I support you 100%.
I figured you might. But
I think
because
I
I
used to not
realized
be a Republican myself until
I'm
Trump,
in.
and I became a
No,
Republican.
because the most dangerous place to be is in the middle of the road sometimes.
Right. We have
That's
to
where you
take a
get run over.
stand.
You got to take a stand. So not that I'm a middle of the roader per se, but I was telling Mindy a story, and it's not really germane now, but earlier I was telling her that there were some reasons why I was a Republican way back. In fact, I was a young Republican. There's obviously people could know that I was very politically active, young, and I remember having that kind of like young lion energy, right? But I was disillusioned and said, I'm going to be a
I
moderate. I'm going to
understand.
just go, and they've left me. But now, after what I'm seeing, I think the reaction to this really heartened me in a lot of ways, because the conservative reaction is, yes, a lot of anger, but a lot of caring about the country and being concerned about everybody, like more concern, versus what I see on the left, which is just a whole lot of people trying to find a way to like try to not take the blame for what they've brought on this country. The chickens are coming home to roost. So I'm just like, you know what? And being an independent in California, they just abuse you. The voter register, they give you like a book you don't understand. They make you vote. It's crazy. So I'm going to switch my registration in the next day or so when I can. I'm going to be in the GOP. So we're going to rock that. So well, we're coming up on 40 minutes. I know it's late, and the
Right.
canines are needing you and stuff. And but I won't. I'll give you the last word. Is there
Okay.
anything we haven't talked about that you wanted to bring up that's relevant to this today for people
Yeah, I
listening?
think one thing in light of what you're saying about the Republican Party and joining it, what President Trump is doing, and this I think is an honor, Charlie Kirk, he's building a new Republican Party of the blue collar worker. And that's what I'm promoting, not the old Republican Party. It's the Lincoln Republican Party, Abraham Lincoln. And Trump and myself at the recent GOP convention, which we have another discussion on separately, is we intervened to build not their Republican Party, but the Republican Party of the working class, the Republican Party of the blue collar worker. And what we're building now, that's why I encourage everybody to join like you're doing. And thank you, Jason. It's the new Republican Party, not the old Republican Party, but one we're building, which is going to represent the workers, the American system, the real values, and the values of Trump, which a lot of our own California GOP leadership does not represent, by the way. That's another story, another conversation we can have.
We'll get there.
I have a lot to
We're
say on that coming
we're
out of
just
this
scratching the
convention.
surface. We're gonna make all these people crazy. They're gonna hate us.
I'm ready to, because we can recruit, and in Charlie Kirk's image, to the young people, like when I was young, you know, you want to build something that represents the real principles of this nation under God, the real under God, the real principles. So I think we're going to to honor Charlie, we're building something great. He did not sacrifice his life without us going forward with President Trump and all we'll do. So that I would add on and look further to a discussion because I have a lot to share with you.
We're gonna do it. Okay. I'm gonna be your baby Republican disciple. How's that?
Okay, and I'll cue you into some things I really need some help with, which are
Oh,
going to
hey, it
get down
sounds
and
good.
dirty.
Well, Mindy, it's always a blessing to have you on,
Thank you.
and
I
be
bless
in
you
my
too, Jason.
yeah. Why you're a blessing in my life, and I know people are going to look back on our shows in the future and go, they're going to see what I see. They're going to go, okay, she was
Okay,
right, because when I first met you, and how you present and the things you're focused on, they're very global, but yet how they're macro. You know how they reach the micro. You know how it's affecting Oakland, right?
right,
So we'll just
exactly.
end with this, that um, I appreciate you coming on and doing the reaction, but you also are daily campaigning for the next election. So we need to remind people that you are running for Oakland mayor. That's your website.
Thank you.
Definitely go and give everything, 5, 10, 15, 100, 500, everything goes a long ways, tax deductible. Guys, quit just sitting
We're
on the
not
side.
tax deductible. That's the answer. We're not tax
Oh, I'm
deductible.
sorry. You're not. Sorry. My bad.
Yeah,
Other campaigns. Okay. Well, don't take the tax hit. Just do it.
just do
Uh,
it. Right.
yeah, even more reason to sacrifice. Thank you for correcting me. But I want
Thank you.
people to not sit on the sidelines, because if every election goes by and you're disappointed, the person, you're disappointing yourself. Like, do more. You can do something. Don't sit on the sidelines. I look. I'm so fed up. Me personally, I'm fed up with what the anarchists have done.
Right.
And as you were talking about, the Republicans, it's the blue collar party now, the new party. It's really, you're talking about populism. You're talking
Right.
about people
Exactly.
waking up and going, what I see on this phone is not what I'm seeing with my eyes. What the liberals are telling me to believe is not real.
Right.
And for years, the last 5 or 6 years, it's been the sky is green when we know the sky is blue. That's how much of the deception that's been perpetrated, especially through social media. See, they always tell us the liberals and the Democrats don't know how to use social media. Oh, they do. They just know how to do it very subversively to get those poison mind virus ideas in the minds of the youth. And guys
Right.
like Charlie Kirk found a way to basically be the antidote to that virus. And I know I have a number of liberals or moderate people that watch this, and I always have to just do the distinction and say, look, if you're a Democrat, that's not my problem. My problem is that Democrats think this party has not transformed into the party of anarchy. They're fooled by the anarchist leaders who have hijacked this party. It's not the Democrats, the old, the Kennedy Democrats, the old, that doesn't exist anymore. This is a party of anarchy. And clearly we know why this assassination happened. Now, maybe there's more than to the story. There always is. I mean, I hope we find out, because this was a high level operation. And let's go.
Exactly.
This is a guy that is very close to the president. And if you think about all the people close to the president, most of them are very secure, right? Except this guy and some others that do make themselves vulnerable, like you're saying. So, and speaking of vulnerability, Mindy is out there campaigning. She puts on, what do you put on? Is it a yellow like jacket, or like a red like vest, so they can't miss you on the streets?
Well, I just put on my sweatshirt and hope for the best.
Yeah, right. They can't miss, and you're out there, you're getting out there where it's dirty, right? You're getting out in the
I'm in
trenches.
Oakland, California. It's as dirty as you can get.
And I think that people need to really look at you differently, and others differently, that they have said, okay, well, they're just they're strong willed, right? Or there's not enough people that support them. No, that's about to change after this assassination.
Right.
People like me switching part, people like, we're done with this stuff, because see, the youth, it was an attack on the youth, sure, and possibly he could have run for president. That's what I was thinking, Sure.
Sure.
There was rumors that he was going to run for governor of Arizona, which would have been
I
huge,
heard
right?
that too. I heard that. I
Yeah.
heard
So
that.
we know it's a blood sport. I get that. But also, see, guys like me who have lived a little, we now look at this and we see it for what it is. We're like, oh, okay, you think you're going to do this? You think you're going to, you see, you can't threaten me. You can't scare me, right? They can't scare
Right.
you
Cannot
because we
scare
know
me.
what it, we know there's power in vulnerability. Like you're saying, there's power in being bold, being brave, right? Putting yourself out there. And that's what we do. So, hopefully this helps some folks tonight, help me to talk to you, and kind of work it out. I was just really devastated because of, the
Of
attack on free
course.
speech. Yeah. And the attack on, obviously, and to break it down, if a person is watching this and they don't care, or they're like, whatever, and he's just a character on your phone. I get that. He has two young babies, and they're going to now always have that assassination on the internet of their and it's the videos are very graphic, right? And it's something that no one should really see. It's like it was like a war in it was like being in a war, what happens in a war, right? So
Exactly.
we just my heart goes out to their family. Obviously, if people think that this hasn't affected the country, they're really nuts. I mean, they're out of it. I mean, the president made a statement. How much more do people need to see that this guy was a real solid stalwart for the Republican Party, for MAGA, and for all those things that are conservative. So conservative values only get stronger when violence comes against it, and so we're going to be stronger. So Mindy, thank
Exactly.
you.
Thank
Um,
you. Thank you, Jason, tremendously.
oh, you're welcome. And tell them where to find you on the internet again before I let you go.
Okay, I'm on the internet under electmindy.com, and you can always email me if you want to talk to me at info@electmindy.com, and join ranks with Jason and I. Join the Republican Party to build a new Republican Party. But if you're not ready for that, just join us. It's okay.
Yeah, yeah, we're fun. And give all your money to her campaign. Why not? Get
Why
crazy.
not? We're
Get
we're gonna win. We're
I
gonna defeat the
believe
snake.
that. I love that. Because it's gonna things are gonna change, and that's the positive thing that people can take out of this is that people are now gonna look at
Right.
how resilient the Republican Party can be and how resilient conservatives can be. Also on X, Mindy for Oakland. She's on the
Thank
old
you.
X. So
Thank
check
that.
that out. All right, Mindy, you take care, and
Okay,
God
you
bless
too.
you.
God
And
bless you,
yeah,
Jason.
and please stay safe. All right, because you put yourself out there, which I want you to do that. But
We will continue.
this is a time where conservatives need to really put their head on a swivel, right?
Right. What else
So
is there to live for? If we don't secure a country and a world of peace and development, what else is your life about?
well, I know you're gonna put it out there like a stunt woman for a stunt woman for Trump, but I'm gonna worry for you. So I was like,
Okay, I appreciate it. Thank you.
all right, take care,
Good
take
night.
care, and say
Sure.
good night to the canines for me. Take care.
Okay. Okay.
Bye.
Thank you. God bless.
You too. Bye now.